Good evening, everyone. Please be seated. Welcome everyone, councillors, officers, public and press who may be viewing this online through the council's website. Just a note to say that councillors to be seated in the seats allocated them for voting purposes. And can I please remind everyone to turn their microphones on while speaking and to turn them off again once finished, otherwise you will not be heard on broadcast. Apologies for absence. Are there any official apologies for absence? No? Okay. Agenda item 1, declarations of interest. Councillors need to declare their interest in items on the agenda. Can I remind councillors that you should declare the type of interest you have, the agenda item in reference in question, and the reason why you have an interest. Does anyone have anything to declare? No? Well, this is easy. Agenda item 2, minutes of the last meeting held on the 24th of May 2023, pages 1 to 6. Councillors to agree the minutes of the meeting held on the 24th of May as a true and correct record. Does everyone agree? Anyone disagree? No. Fabulous. Thank you. Announcements. Firstly, condolences to the family and friends of Harold Eltson, who served as the Blackpool North MP from 1992 to 1997, who suddenly passed away in Germany last week. Whilst an MP, he served as a parliamentary private secretary to the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland in the early stages of the peace process. Condolences also to the family and friends of Ross Weaver, former head of neighbourhood management at the council, who recently passed away after a long illness. Many council colleagues and members also worked with Ross in his role as Chief Superintendent of Blackpool Police before he retired and joined the council in 2009. On a happier note, congratulations to 2 Foul Coast residents who have been awarded honours in the King's Birthday Honours List. John Child, former Managing Director of the Sandcastle Water Park, he has been awarded the MBE for services to tourism, people with disabilities and to the community in Blackpool. Also, civil servant Jill Andrew, manager of the DWP Job Centre in Fleetwood, who has been awarded the Order of the British Empire Medal for public and charitable services in Fleetwood. Also, congratulations to Charlotte Foster from Blackpool Polar Bears Multi-Disability Swimming Club, who won a silver medal last week in the 25-metre freestyle event at the Special Olympics World Games in Berlin. And finally, and good luck for the future for Bev Robinson, Chief Executive and Principal of Blackpool and the Fowl College. She's leaving after 11 years service and has been a powerful advocate for Blackpool on the national stage and a passionate leader and improving the skills and opportunities for the young people of Blackpool. Okay. Now on to agenda item 4, public representation. Mr. Ian White will address the council. Mr. White will have up to 5 minutes to speak. He will receive a warning light at 4 minutes, and he wishes to speak to council about the issue of problematic empty properties. Over to you, Mr. White.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, thank you for allowing me to address you this evening. My first statement has been removed at the request of Councillor Lynn Williams. When I addressed council on the 1st of Feb, there were 15 points of concern, though that list was far from complete. The subject of empty and abandoned properties remains significant negative impact to the guests and residents' experiences. Despite the new Hackett's Hotel no longer being on the list, the Cliffs Hotel has others in its shadow. In fact, there are so many all causing significant concern in their own neighbourhood across the town. Understanding that the council has a problematic empty properties team would be of some reassurance if there were details of achievements, positive progress, in fact anything that could be scrutinised. Sadly, as I am aware of, there is a property on Albert Road where the owner received a £600 fine, and the property is believed to be put forward for sale after a dozen years or more in this state. Having moved to Blackpool in 2005, I see many of the abandoned buildings still the same, nearly 20 years later. Are the owners being chased? Are the owners being charged council tax, business rates, or both, to encourage them to deal with what so often are eyesores, in fact dangerous eyesores in many cases? These properties become magnets for crime and antisocial behaviour that is significantly putting off decent people from returning and putting residents off venturing out of their homes onto the safer streets. There need to be publicised strong messages that property abandonment is unacceptable, and the council are taking strong action against the property owners. Cannabis farms too often take root in abandoned buildings. Professionals digging streets to cut into electricity main supplies, whilst others bypassing meters leave neighbours, emergency services and council officers in serious danger, while the telltale stench fills the air day in and day out. With so many grows being dismantled, the zoo no longer can cope with any more heat lamps, soil and other equipment, leaving recent sites showing the remains of the infrastructure visible through the windows. Worse still, where illegally fitted metal shutters have been cut through by angle grinders, are remaining in place and the danger to passers-by. This is completely unacceptable, and the scars on the community must be addressed, with the property owners held to account and made to address these issues as a priority. So many of these issues are clearly visible within a few yards of the amazing regeneration projects and the prom itself. It is no wonder that around 85% of the nearly 19 million visitors last year returned home at the end of the day visit rather than staying in town. More must be done to support the communities and Blackpool's heritage of the family-run B&Bs that people would normally return back time and time again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr White, and I do believe there is a response from the Leader of the Council, Councillor William.
Thank you. I almost said it. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ian. This issue is not about us being an irresponsible council. I'm not trying to address this issue, but rather about some irresponsible property owners. It's important to remember that the majority of empty properties are not problematic. We do take this matter very seriously. The Empty Properties Group, which is chaired by the Cabinet Member for Community Safety, Street Scene and Neighbourhoods, and includes Public Protection, Blackpool Housing Company, Police, Lancashire Fire and Rescue, Building Control and Housing Strategy. We will shortly have finalised an empty property strategy following work with all partner agencies, and this will be with the exec in September. The group deals on a risk and threat basis, which operates through our existing sharing protocols with partners to expose the most problematic empty properties, of which there are currently approximately 40 to 50. This is fluid, but the process allows the group to target collective resources. In 2021, a problematic empty properties, when I say PEP, I'm not going to keep saying problematic empty properties, but that's what PEP means, or we'll be here all night, was appointed, which clearly demonstrated our commitment to this agenda, particularly in light of the financial cuts to this council has faced. The role is extremely important as a result of the very often time-consuming nature of the work in terms of intelligence gathering, investigatory work and the taking of action. This has resulted in a number of interventions led by the PEP officer, including 10 prosecutions, 10 Section 215 notices under the Town and Country Planning Act, 39 notices served, 16 to landlords related to the property being used as a cannabis farm, police obviously enforce on cannabis farmers, 16 formal notices, CPNs, 22 properties brought back into use, and a number of properties currently going through enforced sales. In addition, informal interventions occur that are not easily quantified. Examples include mediation, informal letters, research into ownership, and communication with the Duchy of Lancaster. Council tax does continue to accrue on the properties at premium rates, over 500 years at 200%, over 10 years empty 300%, and is enforced in the usual way. All members of the Public Protection Division feed into the intelligence gathering around property use in their day-to-day roles and linked to the PEP officer. Obviously, Lancashire Police play a vital role in the intelligence gathering around PEP that are used for the illegal cultivation of cannabis. Their role involves linking the cannabis farms to regional organised crime units and play a reactive role in building a profile around the information gathered. Once the cannabis farm is identified, the police react to the information and carry out the necessary enforcement actions. Once disrupted and dismantled, the cases are then passed over to CID to seek prosecution. Blackpool Council play no role in this process as it is a criminal process. The vacant property is then collated as part of the PEP information gathering process to continue investigations as a PEP. Following police action, Blackpool Council's ASB and Public Protection team then serve CPWs, enforcement notices on the landowners, landlords, once the property has been cleared and cannabis paraphernalia. Those notices are served in relation to the owner's failure to carry out regular checks on the property use and for allowing the misuse of the premises for the illegal cultivation of cannabis. And this type of activity is not only illegal but also, as you've noted in, poses a significant risk to public health and safety as well as potentially causing harm to the local community. All interventions involve a multi-agency approach in all aspects of identification and management of problematic empty properties, from intelligence gathering, illegal property usage to enforcement action taken. The close working relationship between internal and external partners ensures that all community and economic concerns are dealt with holistically to ensure the discontinuation of that community blight and the ASB that they attract. Despite the impact of central government cuts on council budgets, this council, the Empty Properties Group, remain committed to driving this work forward and collectively to finding ways to increase the resources to support the work of the group, which we can agree on is so important to the town and communities. In relation to impact upon visitors, it is true that we have at present more day visitors, but total visitor numbers are, despite everything, holding up well. And when I say despite everything, I'm referring to the financial crisis. The impact of the cost of living increases. People are still coming to Blackpool because we offer best value for money, and only recently we declared most underrated resort. But it is clearly understandable, given the increases in costs, mortgages, rent, food, fuel, that people have economies to make, and I believe it is those choices made out of necessity that are impacting on people's ability to spend more on overnight accommodation. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Mr. White, for attending. Okay, on to agenda item 5, which is the Audit Committee Annual Report, pages 9 to 16. And I do believe we have Councillor Roberts to move the motion.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everybody. I'm pleased to be able to provide the report to the Council on the work that the Audit Committee has done over the last 12 months. But first of all, a look back over since 2015 to thank the outgoing Chair, Councillor Galley, for the work that he's done and the progress that we've made over that period of time. There's a significant amount of work being completed over the last 12 months. I've been part of the Audit Committee for the last 6 years as well. And it's good to see a fresh Audit Committee being formed only in the last 2 weeks. The Audit Committee's functioned well over the last 12 months because of the work and the support that we've had from the executive officers attending. That's allowed us to have a good challenge from the Audit Committee at each of the meetings. The other thing that supported that is the Audit Academy, which Paul instigated some years ago now, where regular training for those that are on the committee. And looking forward, we'll continue that work. I'd like to present the report. If there's any questions on the report, I'll be happy to answer them as well. Thank you, Mayor.
Very happy to second Mayor and also to thank the Audit Committee, because they do a very good job and a very useful job as far as this council is concerned. So great pleasure in seconding.
Thank you very much, Councillor Taylor. Okay, rather than go through it page by page, can I ask, do we have any general questions or comments on this report? No. In that case, you don't need to reply to anything, Jason. Yeah. Does everyone agree to accept the report? Thank you. On to the scrutiny annual report, pages 17 to 30. Councillor Galley.
Thank you, Mayor. It gives me great pleasure to present the scrutiny annual report from 22 to 23. As Councillor Roberts alluded to, this is very much a time of a handover. And in order to do any handover, you must always thank your predecessor. And I think we had an excellent predecessor for this role in the former Councillor Mrs. Callow. She did an incredible job following the North West Employers report 4 and a bit years ago in actually creating this role and allowing scrutiny to become the force that we needed it to be at the time, which is starting to be a force of good. And I've alluded to this in the past, that there will be no gotcha moments in there for scrutiny to be effective, because scrutiny is all about trust. So it was to start with a thank you for Maxine, and as the new chair of the Scrutiny Leadership Board, I will be writing to her to say thank you for her work. And also a thank you to Sharon Davis, who's done an incredible work for all the elected members who been here previously will know, and I'm sure the new members of the scrutiny committees will have also picked that up already in terms of the officer support that you're getting. For new members, I would use this report, for new scrutiny members rather, I would use this report very much as a prologue, something that identifies exactly how we've got to where we've got now. It allowed the leader to be in a position to take the Tourism Economies Committee and out of that form 2 new scrutiny committees, Levelling Up and Climate Change. And this should always be the benchmark to refer back to in terms of how have we got here, what the journey so far, and also have a look at some of the deep dive reports as well. There's some really good evidence there in terms of the relationships that were built into certain committees to allow those reports to not only be created but owned by the executive and the officers to be crucially delivered. And that's really important as we go on this journey. So I'm really happy to present the report. All of the committees did a great job in that financial year. And now you will also note there's something in there about the future. And if we get this right, the relationship between the executive, the officers and all of the 4 scrutiny committees will be an excellent one of trust that helps to develop both policy and, crucially, support with challenging areas of work for the council, and one of which we've heard tonight. So very happy to present and take any questions, Mayor.
Happy to second, Mayor, and again thank Paul and everyone else involved in scrutiny for all the hard work they carry out throughout the year. It's a vital part of the way this council runs. It's necessary to get that background support and information which allows decisions to be made. So we're very grateful for that, and thank you very much, and I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Does anyone have anything else on this report? Anyone like to say anything? No? In that case, we'll move to the vote. Does everyone agree to the recommendation? That's passed. Thank you. Agenda item 7, Executive and Combined Fire Authority reports to Council, pages 31 to 36. Councillor Taylor?
Yeah, I'm very happy to propose this. You've all got the paperwork. I'm sure you've all read it. It has come out of a cross-party discussion about the way we might improve procedure within the council meetings to be more effective in the way we do things. So it's an important document, but I'm sure there is agreement about that, and we'll operate it from the next meeting if it gets approved. So I'll move it.
Thanks, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Galley.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, absolutely delighted to second, and I would like to place on record my thanks to the Deputy Leader, Councillor Taylor, and the Leader in the way that we've gone about this. For anybody who watched November's web broadcast, or webcast of the full council, you'll know why we're all so keen to put some changes into this area. It will give us the opportunity to have discussion that will connect again back to the public, and I believe in particular the area of being able to ask a question and being allowed to ask a supplementary question will be materially different and will allow full council to hopefully take elements of scrutiny rather than pantomime and so on. So we'll gain something in terms of the level of discussion. It's up to us all, though, as elected members, to use it wisely. There are 9 portfolio holders, and may I say a huge welcome to Councillor Hobson for your return tonight. We're delighted to see you as well. I think everyone in this room will echo that thought. But it does mean there are 9 portfolio holders, so we have to be absolutely careful and considerate in the way we use our questions. Otherwise, we'll be here till midnight. So that's going to be part of our challenge, and I'm sure on that side as well. The only question I did have, or concern, was when we last did this exercise on the 8th of July 2015, which was where we brought a change in the way executive performed its function. We still brought the old executive reports to that council meeting. And that was significant because it still allowed us to have a discussion about issues of the day. So there was a place to discuss, if it was today, it would have been United Utilities, it would have perhaps been overspends in the budget, all of those concerns that we all share. Because that's not done, if we take the last time we had a debate around any of those policy areas, it was the 1st of February. The next opportunity we get to have that debate will be the 20th of September. So it's 7 months without a discussion. I know we've had an election in between, but that feels materially wrong, and I feel we have made a mistake by not bringing that with us tonight to have that type of policy discussion. But that said, I think moving forward, I very much support as do the group, this recommendation, and would like to thank again Councillor Taylor and the Leader for their support in putting it together with us.
Thank you, Councillor Galley. I understand what you said about discussions, but just to make it clear to, obviously, any councillors, if you do want to speak to any of the executive about their portfolios, they'd be more than happy to have a meeting with you, I'm sure. And council meetings won't last till midnight. Make that clear. Okay, all right, okay. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to say on this report? No, you're making it very easy, people. Thanks. So you don't need to reply to anything, Councillor Taylor. We just need to vote on the motions. Is everyone in agreement? Thank you very much. That's passed. On to agenda item 8, report of the independent remuneration panel, pages 37 to 56. I do believe it's Councillor Taylor to move the motion.
Yes, very happy to move this, Mayor. And could I take this opportunity, because it's not something we do very often, of thanking the remuneration panel for all the hard work that they do throughout the year. They do it in a quiet kind of way. They do it on a completely voluntary basis. They meet, I think, about 6 times during the year for quite a long period of time. They're not influenced by the council. People might question that, but it's absolutely true, even the officers. They'll listen to them if they agree with them, and if they don't, it doesn't happen. So they do a very good job for us. We'd struggle without them because they do the research as well that's going on throughout the country to get the information to make a good judgment. And I think they have made a very good judgment in this instance. So I'm very happy to move to accept the recommendations of the panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. And Councillor Brooks.
Yeah, can I formally second and reserve the right to speak, Mayor?
Thank you very much. Any other councillors to speak? Councillor Galley and then Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Mayor. Before I start, I want to echo Councillor Taylor's point about the work of the remuneration panel and its representatives. I wanted to sort of pick up on two areas which I feel are inaccurate that I wanted to highlight for the accuracy of the minutes, but equally to note that any update on my thoughts on those is not a criticism of the panel, and it's a recognition that their work that they do is excellent, and it's very important that that's noted. The two areas that I picked up on before I comment in terms of the conclusion is the first was it alludes to my role at the time when I met them. I assume it is myself that it references as the leader of the principal opposition. At that point that I met them, I wasn't the leader of the principal opposition. I was there as a representative of the interim leader at the time. Why is that significant? It shows that the conversations we had were before the election, and it was only one conversation. So we knew nothing of what the post-election world would look like, Mayor. We didn't know about the scrutiny leadership role that I may have been taking on and why that would be different from what role had gone before. Which takes me to the second point I had a concern about, which is around this point where it talks about there is an overlap between a group leader and the chair of the Scrutiny Leadership Board. It's really important that I had to say that actually I disagree with that. I don't think there's an overlap at all. And the reason I say that, the Scrutiny Leadership role is absolutely a non-political role, and I've always prided myself on the ability to wear different hats. So I can support any Labour member and wholeheartedly do and will in that journey. And that is materially different, Mayor, to the role of a group leader. And so the conclusion I disagreed with, and I won't reference the conclusion, which is there for everybody to see, based on their sum. In terms of the conclusion of the report, I have a huge concern around how this looks. And I've been often reminded by members of my own group around optics. We took a 4.4% allowance increase in February based on the cost of living to reflect that discussion. Within 2 months of the election, we take a 2%.
Sorry, you have one minute.
1 minute, okay, that's fine. So we now take 2%. And why does that matter? Since the election in May, we've made 4 decisions: to appoint the leader, to announce who our committees are, to work out our new executive system, and the 4th is to give ourselves a pay rise. How does that look in a world where only 6% believe in politics at the moment? How does that look in terms of the optics to the people of Blackpool? They see that we've done very little. We've heard a speaker tonight about his concerns, and all he will witness is that we're voting something through in terms of to give ourselves an increase. That will be a 6.4% increase since the beginning of this calendar year. It's absolutely unacceptable. It sends out the wrong message. I urge the Labour members to defer it. I deferred the one in February, and I'll defer this one because our finances don't support it. We know we're overspent in our budget by 10 million from the reserves.
Going to have to sit down now.
Okay, if we could call for a recorded vote when the time comes.
Okay, it's Councillor Mitchell next.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate normal procedure to have an allowance review following an all-out election, but I am shocked that this is being supported by Labour councillors after we already had a pay review with a significant increase earlier this year, which Councillor Galley has referenced. Anyone supporting another increase is clearly out of touch with the struggles of ordinary residents in Blackpool and the current cost of living crisis. I was incredibly disappointed to learn the other day that of all the returned councillors, only one other councillor beside myself, Councillor Galley, chose to reject the previous increase and freeze their allowance as I did. Total council allowances are approaching £1 million a year, An average councillor allowance is now over £20,000, including their additional responsibilities. Breaking this down further for 2020 and 2021, as the most recent available published information, Conservative councillors received an average of £15,000 a year versus Labour councillors receiving over £24,000, whilst many treat their councillor position as a second job or part-time job, including the leader of the council, which I understand is now set to receive over £50,000 a year in allowances. Residents will be shocked at this level of remuneration and appalled to see councillors voting through a second pay rise within a year. This is appalling value for taxpayers' money, and I advocated at the last pay review for a 10% cut to allowances to fund additional street cleaning or social workers or other key frontline services when our budgets are already under pressure. It appears, sadly, this has fallen on deaf ears. Perhaps one of the most interesting lines in the report is one regarding remuneration for an armed forces champion, which states, "We concluded that this role, as with many champion roles, is one undertaken out of public duty and service and has not been remunerated." Perfectly acceptable. I would argue that all our positions are taken out of public duty, and councillors should temper their eagerness for any additional remuneration.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Any further speakers? Oh, two Scots at once. We'll go Councillor Michelle Scott first, and then Councillor Danny Scott.
Already said. I'd like to return to Councillor Galley's point about the lead scrutiny member role. We've heard already from the report this evening on the important part that that role takes within our scrutiny structure. It now sits with the leader of the opposition group, but I would have to agree that to suggest that there is an overlap between those two roles, I struggle really to see, and I don't see that there's any overlap at all, for the reasons that Councillor Galley has already expressed. We also now have an additional scrutiny committee. So to be suggesting that that role is now worth only a third of what it was previously in terms of how the allowance is calculated just doesn't make sense to me, and I really can't see how that figure has been achieved. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Councillor Danny Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. Just going back to the 2% rise, I know we're going to flog this one a little bit tonight, but I'm looking at the people across from me, and I can see some decent people over here. There's no doubt about it. I don't think that, in all honesty, we can justify a 2% pay rise after having just received a 4% pay rise. I know there's 14 new people in here, and a couple on this side as well, but I just feel embarrassed now that we're going to vote for a 2% pay rise. We've had massive inflation over the past few years, thanks to COVID and the Ukraine war. Council tax has gone up over the years. There's been no let up on that whatsoever. Rents have gone up as well. In a time when we've had councillors in this room, these chambers, talk about the choice between heating and eating. I'm asking some of you to have a little bit of integrity, a little bit of honesty, and do the right thing just this once and turn this down. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Any further speakers? Councillor Brooks.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. Showing some integrity and doing the right thing. I'm actually going to refer to the report that's before the Council tonight. It actually represents a decrease in terms of what we'd normally expect. If you actually look at the body of the report, it says that the allowances that are paid are in line with the northern average paid to first-tier authorities, so we're no more or less than other authorities. And actually, in the past, we talked about public service being weighed into that equation at 12%. In future, it'll be weighed in at 20%. So I've actually had an 8% decrease if you look at the allowances in those terms. So I'm not embarrassed, and I've got plenty of integrity to try and suggest here that it's about looking at this in the longer term basis, because also within the report, it talks about annual rises in future, being linked to the LJNC or whatever it's called, the National Negotiating Committee for the staff, where it talks about the percentage rise that they'll get. So there's no, we'll come back year after year demanding more money. It's linked to whatever the staff get. And incidentally, the 2% rise is below the offer already made to the staff this year that's been rejected by the unions. So we're actually building in another decrease in the amount of allowance that's going to be paid to councillors. So those are actual facts and figures from the report in front of us. And it really is a bit of a nonsense to talk about embarrassment and to talk about integrity when we talked about this pre-election, the people opposite over there were stood saying, well, we shouldn't accept this increase. And I'm glad Councillor Mitchell's told me that only two people from that bench over there have rejected the allowance that's been suggested. And I know you've got a lot of new people, but that talks to me about integrity and about embarrassment. I've got no embarrassment in talking about the rate for the job. And the rate for the job is what's recommended by this remuneration committee. And that's what's before the council today. So we'll have none of this nonsense about giving yourselves a pay rise. We're on national average with similar authorities. We're building in a decrease in what it is, and in future we'll be alongside the staff. So let's talk about integrity and embarrassment. And also, for some people, this isn't an option where we can give it away. People are giving up paid employment to come in here and do this, and they need to be remunerated for that, and that should be considered. So, yeah, I'm quite happy to second the report, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks. Any further speakers? Councillor Sloan.
Thank you, Mayor. Whilst Councillor Galley and Councillor Mitchell are perfectly okay to say what they have done or not done in terms of whether or not they've accepted the allowance rises, I can only speak for myself. Every penny that I've had, I have donated charitably to one of the concerns that for the ward I represent and national concerns to do with the NHS. So it's not a case of just taking the money. And Councillor Bradley Mitchell and Councillor Paul Galley, yes, they deferred it, but I can only speak for myself, and I'm sure there are other people on this side of this room that have done similar to what I've done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sloman. Any further speakers? No. In that case, I do believe the recorded vote...
Councillor Taylor.
Councillor Taylor, I'm terribly sorry.
Just how anybody could argue that a 2% increase, given the amount of inflation that we find ourselves living through at the present time, is pretty remarkable. And I don't think that view would receive any support in the population generally, because we're all suffering, including all the people in this council who put in a lot of time and effort and expense as well to do a job for the people of this town. They work hard, including yourselves as well. I put you in that. And to say that a 2% rise is unreasonable, this is a bit of politics again. And one of the reasons some years ago that we introduced a panel on a cross-party basis was to avoid this kind of nonsense, to be quite honest. And it's worked. It was done by your party when you were in power. You had the panel, you accepted, we all accepted it, and that was the way it worked. And I think it's about time members on the other side in the Conservative group sort of grew up on this issue and accepted the fact that a really solid, constructive job was done to work out. They're not giving money away, they're working out what is a really reasonable approach to take to make sure that the councillors that we get are at least some way compensated for all the hard work that we put in. And we do put in a lot of hard work. I mean, there's been a reference to Councillor Williams, the leader. She's not here at the moment because she's had to go to a school affair. I work with her every day. I have never known a leader put in as much effort for this, and I was one of them for 10 years. I was a leader, and I count myself for that. I have never known anyone work as hard as she does. And you can't criticise her for that because she puts herself out so much, as other members do too. So let's be logical, let's be reasonable when we talk about this issue. And I hope very much that he goes through. If he doesn't, he doesn't. That's going to be up to you, because we're going to support it, as we always have, including the period when we had a Conservative council here. We always support the remuneration panel, because it has to be done, and they're the people who have the expertise and knowledge to go away and do that job for us. So don't play about with politics in the way you do, not on an issue like this. And I hope that we can work together, and I hope that some people will think again. I don't think they're going to, but I would like to think that people will think again today and support this. Anyway, whether you do or not, it's going to have to happen, because it would be completely wrong to leave people without any recompense whatsoever in addition to they're getting. Faced with your government's inflationary policy, which is getting worse, it's getting difficult for all of it, everybody out there, yes, and us as well. So we should do something to help people a little bit. That's all this is doing. So I'm very happy to again.
I was just going to say, you've got 1 minute. There we go. Fine. Okay, if we're going to have a recorded vote, we need 5 members to indicate. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Recorded vote on the motion in the name of Councillor Ivan Taylor. Please could members indicate their answer with either yes, no or abstain. Councillor Baker?
No.
Councillor Bamborough? Yes. Councillor Boughton?
Yes.
Could you put the microphones on, please, when you announce? Councillor Neil Brooks?
Yes.
Councillor Pam Brooks?
Yes.
Councillor Sean Brooks?
Yes.
Councillor Badess?
Yes.
Councillor Cartmel?
Yes.
Councillor Cooper?
No.
Councillor Critchley? Councillor Ellison?
No.
Councillor Farrell?
Yes.
Councillor Flanagan? Yes. Councillor Hobson?
Yes.
Councillor Hoyle?
Yes.
I beg your pardon, Madam Mayor, I missed Councillor Galley. Councillor Galley?
Thank you, Mark. No.
I've done Councillor Hobson. Councillor Hoyle? I've done Councillor Hugo?
Yes.
Councillor Humphreys?
Yes.
Councillor Hunter? Yes. Councillor Jackson?
Yes.
Councillor Jones?
Yes.
Councillor Marshall?
Yes.
Councillor Bradley Mitchell?
No.
Councillor Carl Mitchell?
No.
Councillor Diane Mitchell?
No.
Councillor Roberts?
No.
Councillor Rowe?
Yes.
Councillor Danny Scott?
No.
Councillor Michelle Scott?
No.
Councillor Sloman?
No.
Councillor Mark Smith?
Yes.
Councillor Sarah Smith?
Yes.
Councillor Taylor? Yes. Councillor Thomas?
Yes.
Councillor Walsh?
No.
Councillor Warren?
No.
Councillor Webb?
Yes.
Councillor Wilshaw?
No.
Mayor?
Abstain.
Mayor, members have voted as follows: 24 for, 14 against, 1 abstention.
So that motion is carried. Thank you. Agenda 9, Honorary Alderman. I would like to ask Council to agree that following discussions between the Leader of the Council and the Principal Opposition Group Leader, this item is deferred to allow for further discussions on civic honours. Does Council agree this? Show of hands. Thank you. In that case, that concludes the business of the meeting. Thank you for your attendance and enjoy the rest of your evening.